Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark. And this is the Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. It's the latest debate spurring Americans to the keyboard, the showdown in the Oval Office between J.D. Vance, Trump, and Zelensky, resulting in Ukrainian embarrassment, progressives keening, and one ambassador trying her best to vanish into thin air. Name calling? Check. Raised voices? Check. And it all came down to telling Zelensky to take a hike. For a refresher, let's roll this short video just before things went south, way south.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. What you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, you said thank you. You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks if this cabinet and all the...
Well, Dave, so many nuances, or not, so little time. What happened?
Okay, let's start with the obvious. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky was poorly prepared for this meeting. I mean, he wasn't up for what he was about to encounter. Mr. Z made the mistake of visiting with Democrat Chris Murphy and others as well. There were some Republicans there, but whatever was said, Zelensky came away with the wrong attitude to engage Donald Trump for sure. Everyone saw that the exchange, and so I don't think we need to rehash it. But, all of that's history now, because President Trump walking away from the signing of the bilateral agreement has prompted President Z to reconsider his position, I would say. As he said in a recent letter to President Trump that President Trump read at his joint session of Congress speech, he indicated a very strong desire now to come back to peace talks and to sign the bilateral agreement with Trump. And that is progress. The deal opens investment opportunities for the U.S. There'll be 50% partners in this endeavor. And it's basically to recover, obviously, the expenditures the U.S. has made. But more crucial, it establishes a fund for the reconstruction of Ukraine from the total destruction that we're looking at right now. And it has manufacturing of its infrastructure and economic, so that it can be an economic powerhouse again. And that can't happen without the U.S. And lastly, and it has not been very well emphasized, I don't think, and that's foundational to the whole Ukraine dilemma. And that's Zelensky insists on security guarantees and sees those guarantees very narrowly in terms of military deterrence with military boots on the ground in Ukraine from Europe and the U.S. Well, that's not happening for the U.S. And he's not hearing President Trump and did not hear Secretary Hegseth at the NATO meeting recently. There will be no U.S. boots in Ukraine. What there will be, if he signs the agreement, is American manufacturing and mining industry workers in the Ukraine, and they'll be working right alongside Ukrainians. And that's what represents, in Trump's mind, a much stronger security measure, since Russia is not likely or would be more reluctant to attack Ukraine, where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans working to rebuild Ukraine.
What happened in those first few minutes? I mean, it went from, hey, how you doing, to all hell broke loose, John. I mean, I know you watched it. We talked about it.
Well, it wasn't in the first few minutes. They went, I think, almost 30 minutes, and it was very civil. And in fact, the president was extremely cordial to the T-shirt guy. that Matt Taibbi said,
Mr.
all-
Z. Somebody's
he said that
and Zelensky.
the journalist Matt Taibbi thought it was great and asked when the president's going to bring Greta Thunberg in for a similar lecture. But he called it the T-shirt that says, "I fought Putin and all I got was this lousy T-shirt." But, it was very civil. And in fact, the president specifically stated that they would be signing this agreement afterwards. And I agree with everything Dave said, but I would add some other things. The way the press is constantly is morphing everything Trump does through a lens of dishonesty, I believe, but the mainstream media at least. And, there has been U.S. aid involvement there since the beginning of the war to take over Ukraine's farming activities on behalf of large international corporations. There are allegations that a lot of the money that the U.S. has supplied is missing. I think $58 billion. This is, as Dave points out, this is not a rapacious deal. This both helps rebuild the country, gives it an economic future, and acts as a sort of human shield of Americans against further aggression by Russia. But I think what really provoked things was not once but twice when President Zelensky started talking about the big ocean that you Americans have to insulate you from these troubles, and your people are going to be on the ground too. And I think that really set off both the president and vice president, saying, you are not going to tell us that we're bringing our troops in. And there are those who think Chris Murphy and others in the European elites have pushed us into this war, have pushed Russia into this war by trying to admit Ukraine, into NATO. And now basically the president's saying, no, you're not getting the blank check of my predecessor. We are now going to stand up and try to settle this before it does conflate into a broader war. But it seemed to me that's what set it off the rails.
Well, that sent Trump off the rails and J.D. Vance, but what sent Zelensky off to where the Ukrainian ambassador did a facepalm and looked like she needed to get the hell out of the room? What happened there, Graham?
Well, I don't think it was any one specific thing with Zelensky. I think it seemed to me like there was tension between the two leaders, obviously President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky from the get-go. And I think, John made some good points there. And also Dave kind of touched upon a lot of the really kind of underlying factors here. And that is that, Zelensky did practically campaign for Kamala Harris in 2024. And he did meet, and I think this was an incredible, let's just say, lapse of judgment on his part. He did choose to meet with Democrats before he even went to the White House. Zelensky obviously found it very easy to deal with Joe Biden. And now all of a sudden he's there sitting in the Oval Office with President Trump, who he practically campaigned against. And so I think the tension was there from the beginning. I've got a lot to say actually more about what really set Trump off and what's behind his frustration. But in terms of Zelensky, I just think he was immediately uncomfortable just even going into that meeting, because I don't think he ever expected that he would actually be negotiating again with a President Donald Trump to try to end this war. And also, by the way, I'm not sure how much Zelensky wants to end this war. I don't think, Putin certainly doesn't. I think Zelensky only does if he's got basically a country, the US in this case, essentially promising to indefinitely secure and rebuild and prop up Ukraine when this war's over. And of course, that's not going to happen.
Well, obviously, he walked in the door with not a great strategy. I mean, he's ignoring the deal makers and begging for the cameras, and does he not realize that, we're not going to help him. I'm not going to send him $50. I mean, that's not the way it works, not under this administration. Andrew, it wasn't a great strategy. What would be a better strategy
So yeah, everyone's talking about the last, about 10 minutes of that powwow. But if you watch Mr. Zelensky's body language during the entire affair, he's rolling his eyes, he's shaking his head, he's looking at President Trump confused. So he really sent the body language to the mainstream media and tried to garner their sympathy.
Did he use, and this could be the biggest rumor, and I don't want to perpetuate it, but did he use cuss words against the president and the vice president?
I'm not going to speculate on that. And I've heard rumors of that. I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not going to.
I didn't. I watched the whole thing and I didn't see that. I wondered what the heck was said to make that poor Markova, the ambassador Markova. Correct me if I'm wrong, people. He just did this. Oh God. So.
If Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, he did the rounds with the media networks, and he was asked, what the heck happened, and he said that he and his team, they were prepared for Zelensky to appear tough and act strong in front of the press, but what they didn't expect was him to behave that way during the entire thing, and that's what apparently took everyone's surprise. No, according to Mr. Lutnick, nobody planned to ambush Zelensky. Nobody planned for it to spiral out of control the way it did. The whole affair was funny because Trump has been pretty consistent on this whole subject since he ran for president the second time. If you watch a CNN town hall he did with Caitlin Collins, I think it was this past summer, he was asked point blank, do you want Ukraine to win the war? And he said, honestly, I don't care. I just want this war to end. Month later, he's pretty much saying the same thing. I'm not going to start bashing Vladimir Putin. I'm not going to start criticizing you. I'm not going to call you names just because I want this war to come to an end. But now to your overall question, though, what can Zelensky do? He just signed the deal. He has about $12 trillion worth of natural resources under his feet in Ukraine. The government has failed to take advantage of it. Corporations have failed to take advantage of it. You have a powerhouse. You have a business-minded administration coming in to help you to take advantage of those massive amounts of critical rare earth resources. Use it. Close your mouth. Sign the deal, and that is it. And that's all Zelensky has to do. You can end this war, get rich, rebuild your country without having to continue this agonizing affair of with countless deaths and everyone's suffering and being miserable, as Eastern European are aware of.
Yeah, well, that was fun, but it sure sparked other European nations to get dizzy. In their own backyard. It's in their backyard, and I don't know why they're depending on us. But as soon as we know more, Liberty Nation News will let all of you know. Thanks for tuning in. Well, that's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of her TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary, your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.